When Lucius Maro noticed his own name written twice in the imperial census, once under the living, once under the dead, he didn't panic. In Rome, mistakes happened. Ink smudged. Clerks miscopied. What terrified him was the date written beside the second entry. It was tomorrow. The census office of Rome was never silent. Even at dawn, before the sun burned the mist off the Tiber, the building breathed, papyrus rustling, wax tablets clicking shut, sandals scraping stone. It was the sound of an empire counting itself, afraid of what it might miss. Lucius Maro arrived before the bells, as he always did. He was 27, thin from long hours, his right hand permanently stained black from ink. He wore no ring, no mark of family rank. That alone explained his job. Only men without power were trusted to record power. The building itself was older than most gods people still prayed to. A former merchant hall converted into an administrative engine, it squatted near the forum like a stone animal fed on numbers. Inside, rows of desks stretched beneath a ceiling darkened by centuries of smoke. Tall shelves lined the walls, stacked with census rolls tied in red cord, some so old their labels had crumbled into dust. Each roll was a life. Or the absence of one. Lucius took his place at desk 43, section 4, Subura and the southern slopes. The poorest district. The most volatile. Fires, disease, disappearances, routine enough that no one upstairs cared unless the numbers dipped too sharply. That was his task today, reconciliation. A new imperial directive required comparison between the urban census and the taxation ledger. Any discrepancy, missing citizens, duplicated names, unclaimed properties, had to be resolved before the next quarter. On the surface, it was dull work. In reality, it was where people vanished. Lucius unrolled the first papyrus and began reading names aloud under his breath, the habit keeping him focused. Gaius Flaccus, alive, registered, taxed. Marcia Livia, widow, alive, exempt. Titus Aemilianus, deceased, no heirs. He marked each with a small notch of charcoal. Nothing unusual. Then he reached his own street. Vicus Longus. He hesitated. Clerks were not supposed to work their own neighborhoods. It was discouraged, not forbidden, but everyone knew why. Familiar names softened scrutiny. Sympathy bred errors. Lucius told himself it didn't matter. He was thorough. He was precise. He scanned the list. There it was. Lucius Maro. Age, 27. Status, alive. Occupation, census clerk. Tax class, minimal. Residence, Vicus Longus, 3rd Insula. He nodded, almost amused. Everything correct. He marked the notch and moved on. 2 lines later, his hand froze. The name appeared again. Lucius Maro. Age, 27. Status, deceased. Cause, undisclosed. Date recorded, tomorrow's date. For several seconds, the office noise fell away. The scratching pens, the murmurs, even the cough of the old archivist at the far end of the hall faded into a dull pressure in Lucius's ears. He checked the ink. Fresh. Not a faded duplication from years past. Not a smudge. Tomorrow. He swallowed and did what every Roman clerk was trained to do when encountering an anomaly. He assumed error. Lucius compared handwriting. The second entry was written in the precise, upright style used by verification officers, the elite clerks who worked upstairs, closer to the magistrates. Men who did not make mistakes. Still, the rational explanation remained, coincidence. Rome had many Lucius Maros. He checked the identifiers. Father, unknown. Mother, freedwoman, deceased. No wife. No children. No guild membership. It was him. Lucius felt a tightness spread across his chest, slow and methodical, like a rope being drawn. He stood. Around him, no one noticed. In the census office, panic was invisible unless it interfered with output. He walked toward the reference shelves, where cross-ledgers were stored. His legs felt oddly light, as if the stone floor were tilting. He pulled the mortality register for the Subura. Hands steady. Breathe. Verify. The roll crackled as he opened it. There it was again. Lucius Maro, recorded deceased. Not alone. Names clustered around his neighbors. A baker 2 doors down. A laundress he recognized by reputation. A boy who swept outside the baths. All marked deceased. All with dates slightly in the future. Lucius closed the roll. This was no clerical error. This was classification. A voice spoke behind him. You found one, didn't you? Lucius turned. An older man stood there, his back bent, eyes sharp. Publius Severus. Archivist. 40 years in the building. A man rumored to have seen 3 emperors fall without changing desks. Publius did not smile. How many? He asked quietly. Lucius hesitated. I'm not sure what you mean. Publius stepped closer, lowering his voice further. Don't lie in this building, boy. The walls remember. Lucius swallowed. My name is listed. Among the dead. Publius nodded once. No surprise. Only fatigue. Then you're already late, he said. Lucius stared. Late for what? For understanding, Publius replied. Come. Not here. They moved toward a narrow side corridor, away from the main hall. As they walked, Lucius noticed something he had never consciously registered before. The office had no windows on the lower level. Only lamps. Publius stopped beside a locked door marked with a faded sigil, Reconciliatio. Do you know why the census exists? Publius asked. To count citizens, Lucius said automatically. No, Publius said. To decide who matters. He unlocked the door. Inside was a smaller room, colder than the rest of the building. Stone benches. Shelves of sealed tablets. A single desk with a ledger bound in black leather, rare, expensive, official. Publius gestured for Lucius to sit. You are not the first clerk to find himself listed, he said. You will not be the last. Lucius felt his mouth go dry. Listed as dead. Listed as resolved. Publius opened the black ledger. These, he said, tapping the page, are citizens who became inconvenient. Lucius leaned forward. The names blurred together. Hundreds. Thousands. All marked deceased. All of them. Lucius whispered. All of them, Publius said. And none of them died when the ink said they did. Lucius looked up sharply. Then why? Because Rome cannot erase people, Publius interrupted. It can only reclassify them. Lucius's pulse hammered. You're saying the state decides in advance who will disappear. I'm saying, Publius replied, that once you are recorded as dead, the world begins to treat you that way. Your wages stop. Your landlord evicts you. Your name vanishes from contracts. Guards stop seeing you. Lucius thought of the neighbors listed beside him. People he hadn't seen recently. People no one asked about. What happens tomorrow? Lucius asked. Publius closed the ledger. Tomorrow, he said, the empire will behave as if you no longer exist. Silence filled the room. Lucius stood slowly. I can go to a magistrate. Publius's eyes hardened. The magistrate signed these ledgers. I can run. Your name is already dead in the ports. Lucius felt something inside him fracture, not fear, but certainty. This isn't about mistakes, he said. No, Publius agreed. It's about control. Lucius looked at the black ledger one last time. My name is here, he said. Publius nodded. Which means someone decided you were no longer necessary. Lucius stepped back toward the door. Then I decide otherwise, he said. Publius did not stop him. As Lucius returned to the main hall, the lamps flickered. Somewhere above, bells rang, marking the hour. Tomorrow was closer now. And Rome had already counted him out. Lucius did not go home. That decision was not heroic. It was instinctive. The moment he stepped out of the census building and felt the morning air touch his face, he understood something with terrifying clarity: home only existed on paper now. The streets of the Subura were already awake. Vendors shouted prices. Water sellers clanged their cups. A mule brayed somewhere behind a row of insuli. Life moved forward with the confidence of people who believed they were still counted. Lucius walked among them, unseen. He passed the bakery where the man named Aulus had worked for 20 years. The shutters were closed. A thin wax seal marked the door, property under review. Aulus's name had been on the mortality list. No crowd. No questions. Just paper doing its work. Lucius turned down an alley and pressed his back against the stone wall, breathing hard. Publius's words returned to him, heavy and precise. Once you are recorded as dead, the world begins to treat you that way. He checked his purse. 2 days' wages. Enough for bread. Not enough for uncertainty. A rational man would seek proof. Evidence. A flaw in the system. Lucius was a rational man. He returned to the census building through a side entrance reserved for clerks. No guard stopped him. His badge still worked. Paper had not yet caught up to flesh. Upstairs, the verification level was quieter. Fewer desks. Thicker walls. Better lamps. This was where truth was decided. Lucius approached the desk of Marcus Valio, a verification officer whose handwriting he recognized from the ledger. Valio was young for the position, polished, wearing a ring that marked him as connected. Valio looked up. You're not assigned here. I'm cross-checking an anomaly, Lucius said, keeping his voice neutral. Subura records. Valio sighed the way powerful men sighed when interrupted. Submit a request. I did, Lucius lied. It was approved verbally. Valio studied him for a moment. Then shrugged. 5 minutes. Lucius leaned over the desk and opened the ledger. He saw the mark. A small symbol in the margin. A circle bisected by a vertical line. What does that mean? Lucius asked. Valio didn't answer immediately. He closed the ledger halfway. You shouldn't ask that, he said. Lucius met his gaze. It's beside my name. That did it. Valio stiffened. He looked around, no one listening, and lowered his voice. Who told you? He asked. No one, Lucius said. I found it. Valio exhaled slowly. Then you were never meant to. Lucius's pulse quickened. Tell me. Valio hesitated, then stood. Not here. They moved to a narrow records room lined with sealed tablets. Valio closed the door. That symbol, Valio said, means deferred resolution. Lucius frowned. Resolution of what? Citizenship, Valio replied. Existence. Lucius stared. That's not a legal category. Valio gave a thin smile. It is when the census becomes predictive. Lucius felt cold spread through him. Predictive how? Valio opened another tablet and showed him a chart, columns of names, occupations, locations, and probabilities. Risk modeling, Valio said. Food shortages. Unrest. Disease. Tax resistance. Rome doesn't wait for problems anymore. It prepares. Lucius scanned the chart. Clerks. Dock workers. Bakers. Water carriers. People who made cities run. You're preemptively killing them? Lucius whispered. Valio shook his head. No. That would be illegal. Then what are you doing? We're removing them from systems, Valio said. No pay. No property. No recognition. Some leave. Some starve. Some vanish. Some die later. Rome remains clean. Lucius's hands clenched. And me? Valio didn't answer. Why am I on the list? Lucius pressed. Valio closed the tablet. Because you work here. Lucius felt his stomach drop. Clerks notice patterns, Valio continued. Clerks ask questions. The census must remain trusted. Lucius laughed softly, without humor. So you erase the people who count. Valio's eyes hardened. We preserve the empire. Silence settled between them. How long do I have? Lucius asked. Valio hesitated. After tomorrow's posting, guards will stop acknowledging you. Contracts will void. You'll still breathe, but Rome won't see you. Lucius stepped back. There has to be an appeal. Valio looked at him almost kindly. There was. It happened before the ink dried. Lucius turned toward the door. Lucius, Valio said quietly. If you run, don't go south. The ports update faster than the legions. Lucius paused. Why are you telling me this? Valio looked away. Because my brother was a baker. Lucius left. Outside, the sun was higher now. Rome gleamed. Marble temples. Bustling streets. A city confident in its permanence. Lucius realized something then, something far worse than fear. Rome did not need to hunt him. It had already decided he was gone. And somewhere, in a ledger he could not see, the empire was already preparing for the space he would leave behind. Lucius did not disappear all at once. That was the cruelest part. At first, he could still feel his body, the stone biting into his knees, the pressure of hands pinning his arms, the cold sweat collecting along his spine. The clerk's grips were real. Human. Calloused. But the chamber itself felt unreal, as if it existed half a step away from the city above it. The pen scratched. Lucius felt it inside his chest. Not pain, subtraction. Like a thought being erased mid-sentence. Stop, he said, though his voice sounded distant even to himself. You can't just. The clerk on the platform did not look up. Publius raised a hand, and the men holding Lucius released him. He fell forward onto the stone floor, catching himself just before his face struck. No one reacted. Lucius pushed himself up, breathing hard. He looked around wildly. The clerks were still writing. They were already done with him. He staggered toward Publius. What did you do? Publius watched him with a tired patience, like a physician observing a patient past the point of cure. We finalized you, he said. That's all. Lucius laughed, sharp and broken. I'm still here. Publius nodded. For now. Lucius turned and ran. No one stopped him. No one needed to. The stairway felt longer on the way up. Each step required effort, as if gravity itself were reconsidering its obligation to him. When he reached the surface and pushed open the side door of the grain exchange, the night air hit his face like a shock. Rome glittered. Torches. Music. Voices. The city had not noticed. Lucius stumbled into the street, colliding with a pair of drunk men. They cursed, then faltered mid-sentence, their expressions folding inward with confusion. One of them rubbed his temple. What was I saying? They walked on. Lucius's heart pounded. He ran. He ran until his lungs burned, until the streets blurred, until the Subura rose around him like a familiar cage. He reached his building, third insula, just as the record said. Home. The door to his stairwell was sealed. Not locked. Sealed. A fresh wax stamp bore the same symbol he now knew too well, the circle split by a line. Property under resolution. No, Lucius whispered. He pounded on the door. No response. He climbed the neighboring building stairs and crossed the roof, dropping down onto his own balcony. His window stood open. Inside, his room was bare. His chest tightened. The table was gone. The lamp. The bedding. Even the small wooden box where he kept his mother's hair ribbon. Clean stone floors. Prepared for someone else. Lucius sank to his knees. He tried to scream. Nothing came out. By dawn, the changes accelerated. His reflection in standing water wavered, refusing to hold shape. His shadow lagged half a heartbeat behind him. When he concentrated too hard, the edges of his hands blurred, as if the city were struggling to render him. He went to the forum. If magistrates still existed, they existed there. He stood before the tribunal steps as citizens passed freely around him. When he spoke, his words dissolved before reaching anyone's ears. Sound without reception. A woman stepped directly through him. Lucius staggered back, nausea rising. He was not invisible. He was non-binding. The law no longer recognized collisions with him. At midday, hunger struck, not as pain, but as weakness. His body still required food, but the city would no longer acknowledge the transaction needed to obtain it. He sat beneath a statue of an emperor long dead and laughed quietly. So this is how it ends, he murmured. Not execution. Accounting. A voice answered him. No, it said. This is how it stabilizes. Lucius looked up. Publius stood nearby, leaning on his staff. You came to watch, Lucius said. I came to confirm, Publius replied. Confirm what? That the process completed successfully. Lucius surged to his feet. Reverse it. Publius shook his head. Not possible. You said Rome couldn't erase people. And it didn't, Publius said calmly. It reassigned you. To what? Publius gestured around them. To the remainder. Lucius frowned. What remainder? Publius's voice softened. The people Rome no longer counts, but still needs. He pointed toward an alley where shapes gathered in the half-light, men and women Lucius had seen before but never noticed. The baker. The laundress. The boy from the baths. All watching. All present. All unrecorded. We clean, Publius said. We carry. We build. We die quietly when needed. And we do not disrupt the numbers. Lucius's throat tightened. This is slavery. No, Publius said. Slavery is expensive. This is efficiency. Lucius shook his head. Why show me this? Because you have a choice, Publius said. Lucius laughed bitterly. I don't exist. Exactly, Publius replied. You can fade fully. Or you can work. Silence stretched between them. What happens if I refuse? Lucius asked. Publius looked toward the Tiber. Eventually, you forget yourself. Lucius closed his eyes. He thought of his mother's voice. His desk. Ink on his fingers. His name written twice. He opened his eyes. I'll work, he said. Publius nodded once. No satisfaction. Only relief. Good, he said. Then Rome will continue. As Publius turned away, Lucius felt the last thread snap. Not fear. Not anger. Memory. By nightfall, Lucius Maro no longer remembered why his name had once mattered. And in the census office, desk 43 was already occupied by someone new, carefully counting, carefully trusting, carefully unaware that the empire had room for him only until it didn't.